So this story's been circulating for quite a little bit, but we now have an American source here, or I should say an English source, I don't know if it's American, that there is a proposal to ban gender studies in Hungary. And some of the reasons I've heard is that it's because they view it as an ideology as opposed to a science. We'll read through this article, but I want to bring up one thing, first. I did an interview with Peter Boghossian. He's a professor in, was it Portland? I'm pretty sure it's Portland. And he gave a talk about intersectionality as a religion. The idea being that intersectional feminism has, I don't want to misquote him, so I'll just give you my general understanding of the concept. It's dogmatic, right? There are sins, there are rules, there's the excommunicated, there are preachers, essentially priests, people who hold prestige within the community, who make money on social media and have a big following. And it's what I was told is that it's like a religion without a god. The rules don't necessarily make sense because it's not about the rules, it's about adhering to the dogma. And if you speak out against them, you're not allowed to question. If you ask questions, you're being problematic, you're insulted. And so, very much so, there are people who believe that intersectional feminism is a religion, that social justice is more a religion than anything. And that's why we see sort of contradictory ideas. It's why we see individuals who are male feminists who turn out to be abusers. So let's take a look at what's going on with Hungary here. Inside Higher Ed has the story. They say Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government has proposed banning gender studies programs at the country's universities, the Hungarian Free Press reported. The official reason is that the programs are not economically rational. Though politicians associated with Hungary's right-wing ruling parties are on record opposing gender studies programs for ideological reasons. It's interesting. The proposal would primarily affect Eötvös Loránd University and Central European University, CEU, a U.S. accredited graduation institution founded by George Soros, remains locked in a standoff with Orban's government over its long-term future in the country. A recent proposal drafted by the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Human Capacities touches upon the future of gender studies in Hungary. CEU said in a statement provided to Inside Higher Ed, the draft cannot yet be considered to represent the official standpoint of the Hungarian government. Regarding the issue, CEU informed the Hungarian Rectors Conference, and thereby the Hungarian government, about its position. Since this matter is currently in an ongoing and not public process, we do not wish to enter into the details. At the same time, CEU reaffirms its commitment to academic freedom and rejects any attempt at censoring academic curricula. I got some other articles I want to pull up, but I want to say a few things about this. Banning anything from universities is a bad thing. I know there's a lot of people that are saying, they're laughing, they're saying, yeah, get rid of gender studies, it's not science, it's ideology. But they teach mythology at universities. I understand mythology is taught critically. You know mythology isn't real. And there are people who take gender studies, which is ideological, and they think it's real. But the point is, we should never restrict information. Not only that, think about this. There may be people who want to take gender studies critically, not because they want to believe everything that they're taught in gender studies, but that they want to know what people within gender studies believe, right? And going to a class and getting a firsthand experience is a really good way to do that. And gender studies, while it may be very dogmatic, it's not absolutely incorrect. It's just ideology. So yes, there are issues with teaching ideology, but it's particularly worrisome to me that there are people cheering for the removal of any course in academia. Look, I get it. Gender studies, I believe Peter Boghossian was saying that gender studies is the root of where this intersectionality religion kind of comes from. And that's why it's problematic, because it's essentially it's like the rectory, it's like the church for these universities. This is where the people become indoctrinated. Yes, that could be a problem, but I think the solution is never to get rid of information. The solution is more information. And the solution is teaching people critical thought. If young people are taught to think critically, and to approach all ideas critically, and to try and learn as much as possible, they will be more resilient to dogmatic indoctrination. Getting rid of this information is not going to serve anybody. I think everybody has a right to know, whatever the information may be. I think people have a right to, look, if you want to study a religion, you can. You can take classes on specific religions. So if this is, gender studies is considered to be ideological, not fact-based, well, the same can be true for a lot of religions. The same kind of rhetoric, works in that regard. I will say one thing that's really interesting is that Hungary has been called a new haven for the alt-right. There was a story in The Atlantic This is how Hungary became a haven for the alt-right. I'm not going to really read through this, but it says the increasingly illiberal European country offers shelter to a growing number of international nationalists. It's international nationalists. It seems paradoxical, but you can actually be an international nationalist in that there are people who advocate for countries to assert their nationality, their nationalism. And there are like American nationalists who think America should have strong borders and treaties with other countries, not isolationist, and they go and advocate for the same thing in other places. The reason why I think this is interesting, they say it's an illiberal European country. Now, what's interesting is that gender studies is typically considered to be illiberal as well. So if Hungary is considered illiberal, and they're going to ban something that's illiberal, you might be saying, well, hold on. How does that make Hungary illiberal if they're getting rid of something illiberal? Because just because gender studies is considered to be, I'm going to say it again, illiberal, meaning it's like restrictive of thought and tells people what they can and can't think, doesn't mean that the country is liberal. Okay, illiberal literally means like restricting thought. And if Hungary is going to ban gender studies, it's a proposal, but if they're going to ban gender studies, they are being illiberal, right? So now I want to pop over to this story from Andrew Sullivan. This is actually from March of 2017. Is intersectionality a religion? And I just want to read through a little bit of this and kind of get into the ideas that I was just talking about in the beginning. Sullivan says, here's the latest in the assault on liberal democracy. It happened more than a week ago, but I cannot get out of my consciousness. A group of conservative students at Middlebury College in Vermont invited the highly controversial author Charles Murray to speak on campus about his latest book, Coming Apart. His talk was shut down by organized chanting in its original venue, and disrupted when it was shifted to a nearby room and live-streamed. When Murray and his faculty interlocutor, Allison Stanger, then left to go to the car, they were surrounded by a mob which tried to stop them leaving the campus. Someone in the melee grabbed Stanger by the hair and twisted her neck so badly she had to go to the emergency room. She is still suffering from a concussion. After they escaped, their dinner at a local restaurant was crashed by the same mob and they had to go out of town to eat. None of this is very surprising, given the current atmosphere on most American campuses, and protests against Murray are completely legitimate. The book he co-authored with Harvard professor Richard Herrnstein more than 20 years ago, The Bell Curve, included a chapter on empirical data showing variations in the largely overlapping bell curves of IQ scores between racial groups. Their provocation was to assign these differences to both the environment and genetics. The genetic aspect could be and was exploited by racists and bigots. This is a guy who wanted to talk on a college campus, and he was physically attacked. This is akin to blasphemy. Look, if you're going to tell people that they're not allowed to express themselves, Lauren Southern talks about this. There's a lot that I disagree with Lauren Southern about, but I don't think she's too off base when she says that hate speech laws are akin to blasphemy laws. You can't insult the religion, you can't question the religion. There's also lèse majesté laws, where you can't even quote people or use the words they used if it could be insulting of the royal family. For instance, Thailand. In Thailand, if someone says something disparaging of the royal family, and you say, I don't like that this person said this, by simply repeating it, you are in violation of the law. With blasphemy laws, simply questioning the religion, seriously, like asking a question like, hey, I don't understand this part of this book, could be considered, blasphemy, and you could be punished for it. And the same is true for what we're seeing now. Look at the story of Papa John. He didn't actually use a racial slur. If you're not familiar with the story, Papa John, the guy from Papa John's Pizza, used the N-word in the context of being angry with racists. He did not call someone the N-word, and because of that, he has been outed from everything. His name removed everywhere. He didn't even call someone a slur. He simply said the word in the context of criticizing racism. We heard the story of the executive at Netflix who was telling people the N-word was racist, and they got offended by him simply saying the word. This is no different from blasphemy laws. This is no different from lèse majesté, but it's being codified in society. There's no law saying you can't say this. In fact, the First Amendment protects our right to say it. But society is punishing people for speaking this way. And if you were to ask me, this is dogma, this is religion, this is zealotry to an extreme degree. It's not even about actually insulting people. So I'll read a little bit more of this, and then we can sort of wrap up with our ideas. But he says, I don't think the chapter was necessary for the book's arguments, but I do believe in the right of good faith scholars to publish data, as well as the right of others to object, critique, and debunk. If the protesters at Middlebury had protested and disrupted the event for a period of time and then let it continue, I'd be highly sympathetic, even though race and IQ were not the subject of Murray's talk. If they challenged the data or the arguments of the book, I'd be delighted. But this, alas, is not what they did. I should add up front that I am friends with both. Well, so Sullivan is saying he's friends with Murray and Stanger, having edited a symposium on the bell curve in the New Republic over 2 decades ago, and having known Allison since they were both grad students in government at Harvard. He says, but what grabbed me was the deeply disturbing 40-minute video of the event posted on YouTube. It brings the incident to life in a way words cannot. At around the 19-minute mark, the students explained why they shut down the talk, and it helped clarify for me what exactly the meaning of intersectionality is. And he calls it a neo-Marxist theory that argues social oppression does not simply apply to single categories of identity, such as race, gender, sexual orientation, class, etc., but to all of them in an interlocking system of hierarchy and power. At least, that's my best attempt to define it briefly. But watching that video helps show how an otherwise challenging social theory can often operate in practice. Yep. When a large group of people get violent and refuse to hear an idea or even have an actual debate, that's terrifying. When people justify violence, when journalists justify violence. On my main channel today, what did I talk about? There were journalists who were physically attacked by Antifa, and other journalists defended the attackers. This stuff is particularly worrisome. But how it pertains to gender studies being banned in Hungary, to sort of wrap things up. Banning ideas is not the path towards a liberal society. It is the path further down the road towards authoritarianism. So banning a college course because you don't like it is not the solution. Increasing access, getting more people to challenge these ideas, and having people learn how to think critically is the solution. So anyway, I don't know, that's about it for this video. I might actually have 2 more videos, I'm not sure, but maybe one more. Stick around, it'll be up in a few minutes.